On the graduation trip after the college entrance exam, I met Gu Tangxing. It was like lightning striking the earth. I loved him so deeply I was willing to die for it, until he threw a pregnancy test stick in front of my dad. Director Lin, your daughter is pregnant, the child is mine, but I'm planning to dump her. Gu Tangxing disappeared from my world. It turned out he had been with me just to avenge his first love. Later, my dad died, and my mom lost her mind. 10 years later, I met Gu Tangxing. Again, I drank alcohol. Come pick me up, and bring 2 friends. Dongwon sent me a message. I replied with okay, followed by heart and kissing emojis. Dongwon is over 40, and his needs are still very strong. I had a feeling I wouldn't be coming back tonight. After reminding Dong Dong to go to sleep on his own once he finished his homework, I left the house. Dong Dong is 9 years old this year, and he is very well behaved. He can sleep alone at home, and he can also make his own breakfast before going to school on his own. I couldn't find a place to park. I called Dongwon, but his phone was off. I had no choice but to park by the roadside and go to the hotel whose address he had sent. Just as I reached the entrance, I heard Dongwon's booming voice. Pretty face, great figure, only 8,000 a month, cleaner than a hooker, and less hassle than dating. She's also on call anytime, faster than a designated driver. As if I hadn't heard him talking about me, I called out, Brother Win. Dongwon turned around and, seeing me standing behind him, looked a little uncomfortable. Clearing his throat, he introduced me. This is my little brother Gu Tangxing, and his fiancée, Wang Lu. As he said that, he pointed at me. This is my, friend, Lin Shi. Hello, Miss Lin. Gu Tangxing politely shook my hand. Wang Lu let out a huff and crossed her arms over her chest. Women like them, the official girlfriends and wives, always looked down on me. I never expected to see Gu Tangxing again in this lifetime. 10 years had passed, and he had shed his youthful awkwardness, looking like a successful man. In those first few years, I used to imagine every day what it would be like to run into Gu Tangxing again. How furious would I have to be? How deeply would I have to hate him? Should I slap him, or just bite off a piece of flesh? Time and hardship had worn away every emotion. When we met again, I only softly said 2 words, hello. 2, they had all drunk a lot, and the car was thick with the smell of alcohol. On the way here, I had already bought 3 bottles of yogurt and some hangover medicine. Look, my little G is so thoughtful. Dongwon turned his head and bragged to Gu Tangxing. I had been with Dongwon for 3 years. He wasn't bad, just a little too sharp with his words. Dongwon ran a small advertising company. He was called President Dong outside, but he didn't actually have much money. Being able to keep me around for 8,000 a month is something he should be proud of. As far as I'm concerned, it wasn't much of an insult, and I never got angry about it. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Wang Lu slightly furrow her brows, her right hand resting on her stomach. While the light was red, I took a heat patch and handed it to her. It might help if it's a little warmer. Only then did Gu Tangxing notice his fiancée's discomfort. He asked her about it and even stopped by a pharmacy to buy Wang Lu some medicine. Wang Lu lived the closest, so she got out of the car first, probably because she was grateful for my heat patch. She no longer seemed as averse to me as she had at first, and politely thanked me before saying goodbye. Wang Lu is quite pretty, clearly a girl raised in a good family. Getting off at the government compound residential area further proves this point. Only the 3 of us were left in the car, and Dongwon started getting handsy. This is how he gets after drinking a bit, as if no one can see, his big hand pressed against the top of my thigh. Gu Tangxing's phone rang. He answered it. MHM, got it, okay, I'll go right now. After hanging up, Gu Tangxing's voice was full of apology. Brother Wen, my old man is calling me back to his place. Could I trouble your friend to give me a ride over? Gu Tangxing seemed certain that Dongwon wouldn't come with me to drop him off. Arriving at the entrance of Dongwon's residential complex, Dongwon pretended to hug me, but his hands wandered, giving me a few improper squeezes. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, I'll satisfy you tomorrow. The warmth of his breath hit my ear, and I shivered. I couldn't tell if it was because of Dongwon or the impending time alone with Gu Tangxing. 3. On the way to the Gu family's old house, Gu Tangxing remained silent for a long time, so long that I almost forgot there was another person in the back seat. Actually, I knew where the old house was. We had once kissed passionately in front of its iron gate, covered in ivy. He cupped my face and said, Shaoxi, can you feel how much I like you? It was supposed to be an act, so why were his eyes filled with starlight? The fact that he hasn't risen to stardom in the entertainment industry over the years should be considered a regret for audiences nationwide. A light chuckle came from the back seat. Lin Shi, are you really that cheap? You graduated from a top 985 university, for goodness sake. Go ask your classmates if they'd even dare mention a monthly salary under 20,000. And you sold yourself for just 8,000. I didn't say anything. What are you talking about? I said it was all thanks to him. After he found out I was pregnant before marriage, my father went out drinking, crossed the street recklessly, and died in a car accident. My mother couldn't handle the shock and lost her mind. I couldn't report to the university and lost my admission qualification. He'd probably be thrilled to know. Given how much he hated my whole family, I don't want to give him that satisfaction. Gu Tangxing, getting no response from me, kicked the seat. Say something, damn it, afraid of danger. I pulled the car over to the side of the road. Gu Tangxing, what do you want me to say? I closed the door gently, but it still woke up Dong Dong. Looking up, I saw him standing vigilantly by the bedroom door, holding a fruit knife. A pang of sorrow welled up in my heart. While I was pleasing another man, while I was at the hospital taking care of Mom, Dong Dong was at home, living in fear like this. Mom, a smile spread across Dong Dong's face as he rushed over and hugged me tightly. I have always felt that Dong Dong symbolizes the suffering of my entire life. If Dad hadn't had the accident, my parents would certainly have taken me to the hospital for an abortion, but Dad died. Both my father and mother lost their parents early and had no brothers. If Dad's students hadn't come, the funeral would have been utterly deserted. After the funeral, my mother spent all day threatening to kill herself. At first, she was still lucid and would beat me nearly to death, saying I was shameless and had killed Dad. Later, she was lucid less and less often, and even ran out of the house and injured a neighbor. We paid a huge amount in medical bills, and I used the family's remaining savings to send Mom to a psychiatric hospital. At the hospital, Mom was diagnosed with kidney failure. When she was occasionally lucid and learned about her condition, she didn't want to be a burden to me, so she tried to jump off a building. She ended up paralyzed from the waist down. No one took me to have an abortion. If anyone could see my story, they would surely snort at this point. 18, you're an adult. Why couldn't you go yourself? Even now, I want to laugh at my younger self. Yes, I don't dare. Before meeting Gu Tangxing, the most embarrassing thing for me was taking off my shirt during the physical exam before the college entrance examination. I don't know how to walk into the gynecology department and tell the doctor that I'm pregnant. What kind of look would he, or she, give me? Will the doctor give me a surgery consent form for my family to sign? What family do I have? On TV, miscarriage seems so easy. Just a fall or eating something cold and cooling will do it. I desperately threw myself down, pounded my stomach, and even ate a whole pack of Neohuangjidu tablets, but it was completely useless. Every day when the sun rises, I tell myself, tomorrow, I'll deal with it tomorrow. Those days passed quickly. I took care of my mother, handling her waste, washing her body, and enduring her beatings and scoldings when she was lucid. It wasn't happy at all, yet it passed so swiftly. Dong Dong grew inside me just like that. I was terribly thin, not showing at all. It wasn't discovered until my father's colleague, who was also my homeroom teacher, Teacher Xiang, came to the hospital to visit my mother. Teacher Xiang thought I was only 5 months pregnant and planned to take me for an abortion. Only after the examination did we realize it was already 8 months. Dong Dong weighed only 4 pounds at birth, like a little chick. Teacher Xiang cried, Lin Ji, don't you know you're ruining yourself? 5, probably because I met Gu Tangxing again. I dreamed of many things from the past. That year I was 18, beautiful, with excellent grades, and I walked with an air of high spirits. After the college entrance exam, I wasn't worried about my scores at all, confident that I would get good results. My parents had promised me long ago that after the exams, they would let me travel alone to visit all the famous mountains and great rivers I loved. I met Gu Tangxing in Lijiang. Folk songs I couldn't name were playing in the guest house, and I found a notebook on a table. On the title page, 3 large characters were written in a bold, flowing script. Gu Tangxing. I called the number on the notebook. Gu Tangxing came downstairs and walked toward me against the light, his entire figure outlined as if edged in gold. After a few moments of conversation, I was pleasantly surprised to discover that he was born in the same city as me, also graduated from the same high school, and even had the same homeroom teacher, Mr. Xiang. I also wanted to apply to the university he attended, but by then he had already graduated and was preparing for graduate school. We rode bicycles together during the day and rowed boats on the lake at night. Under a sky full of stars, Gu Tangxing said to me, Lin Ji, be my girlfriend. It was my first attempt at embracing, kissing, and my first experience of the pain that comes with intimate physical contact. How deeply I loved him back then. I thought we would be together for a lifetime. Who would have thought that the romantic encounter I believed it to be was nothing but a long-planned revenge of his. 6. My dad is the dean of discipline at Yiga High School. Yiga High is a boarding school with strict management. Teachers take turns on duty, patrolling the campus every night. That night, it happened to be my dad's turn. My dad and the security guard caught two students attempting to climb over the wall to elope. One was Gu Tangxing, and the other was his girlfriend, Feng Wandong. It just so happened that the high school was cracking down on student puppy love. During the next day's recess exercises, my dad singled out two typical cases and made them confess their mistakes in front of the entire school. With such a major incident, calling in the parents was naturally unavoidable. Unexpectedly, Feng Wandong, who hadn't even cried during the school-wide confession, knelt down crying in front of my dad. Director Lin, I beg you, please don't call my parents. My dad was so angry he was practically fuming. Now you're scared. Where was this fear earlier? One must first disgrace oneself before others will disgrace them. As a girl, if you don't know how to respect yourself, how can you expect others to respect you? I have a daughter too. If my daughter made such a disgraceful spectacle of herself, I would have broken her legs long ago. Feng Wandong was still taken away by her father. What my father didn't know at the time was that Feng Wandong's father was not her biological father, but her stepfather. The stepfather had always wanted to assault Feng Wandong. She sensed the danger and wanted Gu Tangxing to help her escape. That night, Feng Wandong's stepfather succeeded, and Feng Wandong committed suicide. Perhaps even then, Gu Tangxing had already wanted revenge. He wanted to see what my father's reaction would be upon learning that his own daughter had also disgraced herself like Feng Wandong. Last night, after the car stopped, Gu Tangxing slammed the door and left, throwing out a sentence. Does Director Lin know you're doing something so shameless? I sat in the car and laughed until tears came. What could Dad do even if he knew? And what if he doesn't know? We still have to go on living. 7. Before Dong Dong was born, I sold our family house. It was an old school staff housing complex, without even an elevator, so it didn't fetch much money. Mom needs regular dialysis, and I can't take care of her all the time. Hiring a caregiver was also a huge expense. At the time, I wanted to die all the time. If there was an open manhole in the road, I even wanted to crawl into it. I had to use all my strength just to suppress the urge to die. How refreshing it would be when the river water washed over my head. How satisfying it would be when the tip of a knife sliced across my skin, but I couldn't, because I had a crazy mother with uremia who was also partially paralyzed. I also had a baby son who was still crying to be fed. Dying was just too much of a luxury. My mother has a caregiver looking after her, but Dong Dong can't be left alone. The money in my hand was disappearing fast. On TV, when a heroine runs into something like this, some domineering CEO always shows up to throw money at her and humiliate her, but who can tell me where I can meet such a domineering CEO? I can't even figure out how to sell myself. I rented a room in the university town, meant for student couples on a tight budget. It was really just one room. Once the bed was in place, there was hardly any space left. The rent was ridiculously cheap, but even to get water, I had to go downstairs there. I ran into Heilong, my first sugar daddy, that day. After I coaxed Dong Dong to sleep, I took a basin downstairs to get some water. Lin Ji. Heilong stopped me. One of his classmates was also renting a place here, and he had come over to play cards in high school. Heilong liked me and even confessed to me, but I turned him down. My dad hated him, saying he was just like his nouveau riche father. When he saw Dong Dong, the look on Heilong's face was indescribable. I took you for a goddess, who knew you were a pair of worn-out shoes. He called me a worn-out shoe with his mouth, but he still came to see me from time to time. Later, seeing that my life was truly too difficult, Heilong proposed to keep me. Calling it keeping was just moving into the two-bedroom, one-living-room apartment he rented, which had a kitchen and a bathroom. His family had money, but not enough for him to squander it freely. He took care of my food, clothing, shelter, and transportation, and could even look after Dong Dong when I went to the hospital to see my mother. I was already very satisfied, even though he was reckless and rough in bed, cursed a lot, and would hit me when angry. I still felt he was the benefactor in my life. He supported both me and my son, and sent Dong Dong to kindergarten. Finally having some free time, I decided to look for a job, but with only a high school diploma, I couldn't find anything. I wanted to take the adult self-study exams, and Heilong agreed. I stayed with Heilong for 5 years, until he graduated from university, found a job, and his family arranged a blind date for him. He was getting married. To make up for it, or perhaps to get rid of me, his family bought a second-hand one-bedroom apartment. For me, that's the place where Dong Dong and I live now. 8. Mom, time to get up. Dong Dong's alarm clock seems to be a few minutes earlier than mine. He had already washed up and gotten dressed. I'm away from home many nights, so he learned to take care of himself long ago. Dong Dong's school isn't very close to home. It takes 4 subway stops to get there. That was the best school I could find for Dong Dong. There were no good schools near the house provided by Heilong's family, and Dong Dong had reached the age to start school. To attend a good school, you need a home in the school district. At that time, I found a job as a receptionist at Dongwen's company. My mother's illness keeps relapsing severely. I've taken leave repeatedly, and my monthly salary of 3,500 has been docked to less than 2,000. HR advised me to resign voluntarily, and I understand, if I were in their position, I wouldn't want an employee who takes leave all the time either. Moreover, this meager salary isn't enough, but I can't find anything else. Among the jobs I know of and can access, none allow me to leave for the hospital at any moment. Staying up night after night, I write novels and do live streams. Perhaps due to a lack of talent, I never get the full attendance bonus, and my live stream viewership has never reached triple digits. In the end, I turned to Dongwen, pouring out my hardships. I caught the glimmer in his eyes when he saw me coming and going at the company. When Dongwen proposed to support me, I agreed without a second thought. He couldn't offer much money, but he could secure Dongdong's school district, find a good doctor for my mother, and understand my hardships. That's enough. Dongdong walked ahead, carrying his small backpack. After getting off the subway, he never let me hold his hand, saying his classmates would laugh, yet at other times, he would cling to it and not let go. After promising Dongdong I'd have fried chicken with him that evening, I went home to memorize vocabulary. A self-study adult education diploma is almost worthless in society, but fortunately, equivalent qualifications still allow for graduate school entrance exams. I don't ask for much, just a job with insurance, where I won't be casually fired for taking leave. This kind of job requires exams, and exams require educational qualifications, so I must pursue a master's degree, of course. Some might think these are just excuses. Delivering food or packages could potentially earn 8,000 a month, not to mention the scheduling difficulties. I also have to consider the future. I'm 28 this year. By the time I'm 38, will I still have the energy to keep hustling? By then, no one would be willing to pay for my services either. What about my mom? What about my son? Before I could even leave to pick up Dong Dong, the hospital called. Brother Wen, the hospital says something happened to my mom. Could you please help me pick up Dong Dong? As I rushed out, I called Dongwen. Don't worry, drive slowly on the way. Dongwen reminded me, like Heilong, he's not a bad person. When I arrived at the hospital, my mother was already out of danger. The patient had a dialysate reaction but was successfully resuscitated. The doctor reassured me. I nodded, without feeling shaken. This kind of thing has happened too many times over the years. Mom woke up, and in a rare moment of tenderness, her warm hand touched my head. Xiaoji, do your homework properly and don't watch TV. Your dad and I are both on duty today. Lock the door. Her memory was in chaos. I didn't know which period of her life she had returned to, and tears began streaming down my face. 9. Mom had only seen Dong Dong once, when he was very little. Because Dong Dong looked too much like Gu Tangxing, Mom became ill as soon as she saw him, so I never brought Dong Dong over again. Thinking of this, I was startled. Dongwen also knew Gu Tangxing. If he started to suspect something, under the effect of the medication, Mom fell into a deep sleep. After arranging everything with the caregiver, I hurried home. On the way, I got a call from Dongwen. Xiaoji, the client had something come up today, so I couldn't make it to the school. Coincidentally, Tangxing was with me, so I asked him to go. Who did you say? My voice trembled. Dongwen thought I hadn't remembered Gu Tangxing's name. The guy you sent off last night, Gu Tangxing. Do you have his number? No, I'll send it to you in a bit. And you know what? Tangxing and Dong Dong really look alike, just like that kid in Mayun. It'll definitely be fun when they meet. Dongwen was chuckling, and the knot in my chest loosened. I called the number Dongwen had sent, but Gu Tangxing didn't answer. I called Dongdong's smartwatch next. Mom, Uncle Gu is taking me to eat fried chicken. Dongdong's voice was full of joy. Uncle Gu wants to talk to you. Xiaoji, where are you? I think we need to talk. Gu Tangxing's voice came through, leaving me in a moment of daze, as if it had Come from 10 years ago. I have something to do today. Please trouble Mr. Gu to take Dong Dong home for me, tomorrow, then, I want to face it tomorrow. 10. My chest felt tight, and I rested my head on the steering wheel and slept for a while. Only 20 minutes had passed, but when I woke up, I was drenched in sweat. Lately, I've had no appetite and can't be bothered to get out of the car to buy dinner. I waited until nightfall to go home, hoping to avoid Gu Tangxing. I was afraid of him, afraid he would disrupt the life I had finally managed to build. Even if that life was already considered a complete mess in the eyes of others, the moment I stepped into the building entrance, I was forcefully pinned against the wall. The motion sensor light in the hallway was broken, and a sharp chill mixed with the scent of tobacco rushed into my nostrils. I couldn't see clearly, but I knew the person opposite me was Gu Tangxing. Lin Ji, how dare you? How dare you give birth to the child behind my back? Gu Tangxing's voice was filled with gritted teeth. How ironic, it was my own cowardice that made me miss the chance to abort Dong Dong, and now he asks me how I dared. I couldn't even deny that Dong Dong isn't his child. The resemblance is too strong. I'm exhausted, too tired to utter a single word, yet forced to speak. Gu Tangxing, what do you want? What else do you think I owe you that needs repaying? 11. Early the next morning, I came down with a fever. Likely triggered by the emotional turmoil, struggling to get up, I still managed to take Dong Dong to school. Gu Tangxing was waiting right at the school gate. Uncle Gu. Dong Dong saw Gu Tangxing and ran over. It was clear that he really liked Gu Tangxing. Gu Tangxing picked Dong Dong up and bounced him a few times. Did you miss me, Dong Dong? A classmate who played well with Dong Dong passed by. Lin Qidong, is this your dad? The classmate's mother also smiled and said to me, this is the first time I've seen your husband. He looks so much like Dong Dong. Dong Dong blushed and buried his face in Gu Tangxing's shoulder. He didn't argue that it wasn't his father. Perhaps Dong Dong also wanted to have a dad. Study hard at school, and dad will come pick you up again tonight, okay? Gu Tangxing winked at Dong Dong and, following everyone's lead, introduced himself as Dong Dong's father. Dong Dong's face lit up with a smile. After running through the school gate, he popped his head back out and shouted loudly to us, goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, Mom. I waved at Dong Dong with a smile. 12. It was early in the morning, and there wasn't really a suitable place for a conversation. I got into Gu Tangxing's car. What do you think about my proposal from last night, yesterday in the hallway? Gu Tangxing asked me. Since you're selling yourself anyway, you might as well sell to me. I'll give you 15,000 a month. I shook my head. What, do you just prefer old men like Dongwen? Gu Tangxing sneered. You're getting married. That's none of your concern. Don't think having my child means you can enter my life. My throat felt itchy, and I coughed for a while. You've misunderstood. Whether you get married or not is your business. Dongwen doesn't have a wife, which is more convenient. I don't want to worry all day about someone coming to cause trouble. Gu Tangxing was left speechless, seeing my face flushed red from coughing. He placed his hand on my forehead. You have a fever. Gu Tangxing bought fever-reducing medicine and took me home. After taking the medicine, I quickly fell asleep. When I woke up, the room was filled with the aroma of food. He had cooked porridge and stir-fried, two simple dishes. I didn't stand on ceremony with him, but I didn't have much appetite either. I just ate a few bites casually before putting down my chopsticks. Gu Tangxing, you must have heard from Dong Dong that my father has already passed away. Your enemies are all gone. So stop focusing on taking revenge on me. You think I'm staying here for revenge. To be honest, I wasn't curious about why he was staying here. After all, my life couldn't get any worse. Seeing that I didn't answer, Gu Tangxing continued speaking. Your father always went on about integrity and dignity. If he saw you like this from up there, he'd probably be so angry he'd come back to life. I laughed weakly. That would be great. If it could make him so angry he comes back to life, I'd gladly serve a few more men. Are you really that cheap, Gu Tangxing? If you want to compensate Dong Dong, I'll accept any amount of money. You don't have to do anything with me just for the sake of a child. If my father knew I was taking Gu Tangxing's money, he'd probably be so angry up in heaven he'd cough up blood. Then let him come back to life. Come back to life and help me. 13. The next few days were relatively calm. Gu Tangxing would come to see Dong Dong from time to time, avoiding Dongwen. He seems to have some collaboration with Dongwen and knows when Dongwen will be too busy to look for me, until he investigated my past. Back then, after I told my father everything at home, Gu Tangxing went abroad for graduate studies, so he always thought I went to university, at his alma mater, studying the major he suggested. Gu Tangxing's old classmate now works at the college I originally applied to in that university. He checked the student list from that year. And my name wasn't in it. Gu Tangxing then went to find Teacher Xiang, who shut the door on him and said many harsh things. Teacher Xiang is the person I am most grateful to in my life. She was afraid I'd be scammed, so she helped me contact people to sell the house and found a caregiver for my mom after Dong Dong was born. I didn't know anything. She taught me little by little, and she also took care of me during my postpartum confinement. She often said that I used to be her most outstanding student. What I owe Teacher Xiang, I have no ability to repay in this lifetime. I'm sorry, Gu Tangxing said to me. I didn't know Director Lin died because of me. I sighed. Who could have known? My dad just called Feng Wandong's parents. His way of handling it had serious problems, but if he had known it would harm Feng Wandong, he definitely wouldn't have done it. Just like you only wanted to vent and humiliate my dad, but my dad died, my mom went insane, and my whole life is ruined. Xiaoji, don't be like this. Scold me a couple of times. Hit me. I laughed bitterly. Gu Tangxing, I don't have such strong emotions anymore. Everything is what I deserve. I wasn't lying to him. I don't know when it started, but my emotions have become difficult to stir. Perhaps it was when I finally scraped together enough money for medical bills, went to the hospital, and was beaten and cursed by my mother, who called me a slut, a murderer. Perhaps it was when Yulong was in a bad mood. Dong Dong had a fever and was crying, and he pinned me down, doing it over and over in front of Dong Dong. Perhaps it was any moment from the past 10 years. In short, I haven't been that angry for a long time. This is probably also the reason why no one reads the things I write. I don't even have any emotions myself. How could I possibly infect others with them? My husband cheated, then just get a divorce. Awful relatives. Just ignore them. Death. Isn't death a good thing? I don't know how the so-called strong female lead is supposed to get out of the mire, and I can't even imagine it. 14. Wang Lu came to see me. See, I knew it. Getting tangled up with a man who already has a partner would only lead to trouble. I can give you money. Wang Lu got straight to the point. I heard from Tangxing. He was young back then and did things that were far from right. You must have had a very hard time all these years, haven't you? It's been 10 years. This is the first time someone has asked me that, asked if I've had a hard time, even though I know it hasn't been easy for you. I love Tangxing, Wang Lu continued. Don't worry. I don't intend to have anything to do with him. I know, Wang Lu said with an understanding look. Who would get involved with the person responsible for their father's death? This isn't some TV drama. It's Tangxing who can't let go of the child. He says he can't just abandon you and your son. So, I didn't want to hear about all the twists and turns. I just wanted to know how she planned to deal with me. I want you to leave the city. I carefully observed Wang Lu's attire, recalling the day I dropped her off at the family compound. Coming from an ordinary civil servant family, I don't think she has the ability to make me leave. You must have heard about my family situation. My mother's hospital needs to be properly arranged. Wherever we go, medical insurance must be accessible. There's also Dongdong's school registration issue, plus the middle school he'll attend in the future, if we move to that place. And with Dongwen currently giving me 8,000 a month, if it's just a break-even situation, I have no reason to give up my life here and leave. Can you afford it? Sure enough, Wang Lu bit her lower lip and remained silent. How much were you originally going to give me? 300,000, I nodded. It was a show of sincerity from the young woman, likely all she could muster. I'm sorry, that's not enough for me. I believe women should be self-reliant, not dependent on others. There are many women in this world who have been through worse than you and have built happy lives on their own. They are them, I am me. I don't have that capability. I'm just trash, worthless. If you pride yourself on being independent, you shouldn't have come to me. I didn't provoke Gu Tangxing. You should go find him. Wang Lu stormed off. Her upbringing wouldn't allow her to say anything more to me. She's a pretty good girl. Watching her retreating figure, I began to think if I hadn't met Gu Tangxing, would I be like Wang Lu now? 15. Mom passed away very suddenly. The caregiver found she had passed away in her sleep when trying to wake her up in the morning. I had just dropped Dong Dong off at school when I received the call. The elderly didn't suffer much. Please accept my condolences. I hung up the phone and slapped myself hard twice, because I am a despicable beast worse than pigs or dogs. The moment I heard about Mom's death, what I felt wasn't sorrow, but rather, liberation. From now on, I no longer have to worry about monthly medical bills and nursing care fees. I no longer have to Anxiously wonder every day where the money for the surgery would come from if a suitable kidney match were found. I no longer have to think about what would happen to Mom when I feel like dying. She has gone to that world to reunite with Dad, and will never suffer again. That's truly good. Mom's funeral was very simple. I didn't bring Dong Dong. Mom probably wouldn't have wanted to see him. The burial plot was bought for me by Dongwon. I cried when placing the ashes into the grave. It was the first time I had cried since my mother passed away. As if only then did it truly sink in. I no longer have a mother, even though, for so many years, she had brought nothing but torment into my life. I can't quite describe what I was feeling. It seems that having a mother there, even if she was just a burden, made things fundamentally different. 16. Are you planning to break up with me after leaving the cemetery? Dongwon took me to eat, constantly putting food in my bowl. Eat more, you're getting thinner and thinner. My stomach feels like it's blocked. I can't eat much. If it's just for Dong Dong, I should be able to afford it. These years, Dong Dong and I have been living very frugally. The nursing care fees plus medical expenses exceed 10,000. If it weren't for the extra care from the benefactor, Dong Dong and I would probably be going hungry and cold now that Mom is gone. When Dongwon's 8,000 comes this month, I don't even know how to spend it properly. It's good that you're with Gu Tangxing. Dong Dong should have a father after all. He told you. He's a jerk, but don't take it out on yourself. Take it out on myself. I stopped doing that a long time ago. People are different. I don't have the ability or the backbone, so I never take things out on myself, but I don't want to be with Gu Tangxing. Staying with me is fine too. You focus on studying and taking your exams. Once you finish your master's degree, we'll see. It's not easy to find a job even with a master's these days. Let me think about it. I'm pretty confused right now. Get some good rest. After taking care of the elderly for so many years, you deserve a break. 17. Right after I started resting, I ran a high fever for many days. For 10 years I never dared to get sick, and now that I have, it feels like I'm making up for all those years at once. Dong Dong got scared and called Gu Tangxing in tears. Gu Tangxing took me to the hospital. Advanced lymphoma. We'll need to run more tests before we can know the specifics. The doctor originally wanted me to step outside and tell Gu Tangxing instead. I said he wasn't my family, that I wanted the truth, and that I had no family. This, could it be some kind of mistake? Gu Tangxing's voice was dry and flat. I held his hand. It was cold, and he seemed even more afraid than I was. The test results showed that the tumor had spread extensively, leaving only about 6 months to live. 18. Xiaoxi, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Xiaoxi, I love you. I've only ever loved you in this lifetime. Back then, Feng Wandong pursued me, but I didn't like her. However, she told me about her situation, and I pitied her. That's why I wanted to help her escape her family. But your father caught us. I just wanted to make him angry. I really didn't know it would turn out like this. I thought if you had the child aborted, you could start a new life. Xiaoxi, I wasn't acting back then. I genuinely fell for you. You were so wonderful. How could I not like you, all these years? I've never been able to forget you, but I didn't dare come back to face you. After what I did, I was afraid you wouldn't forgive me. Gu Tangxing knelt before me, crying like a child. His deep affection truly disgusts me. Even if he were more heartless, saying he didn't regret avenging Feng Wandong, I would have thought more highly of him. But what could I do? Heaven never gave me a chance to choose. My nails dug into my flesh as I raised my hand and caressed Gu Tangxing's cheek. Me too, Gu Tangxing, I've only ever loved you in this lifetime, but how could I love you? My father would never forgive me. I hate you, but I hate myself even more. I hate you for making me like this, yet I still love you. I use the greatest talent of a lousy writer to say these words. His regret disgusts me, but I long for his regret. The more he regrets, the better it will be for Dong Dong. Even if he gets married later and has his own children, he can still treat Dong Dong better out of guilt and regret. 19. There is no longer any need for treatment. There isn't much time left. I just want to focus on nurturing my relationship with Gu Tangxing. I've broken up with Dongwon. After learning about my illness, he hesitated for a long time before saying, God is a real bastard. I am grateful to both Yilong and Dongwon. I appreciate the care they've given me. Without them, I might have ended up on the streets, selling my body to countless men, and eventually contracting a filthy disease. I Probably wouldn't have had as much time to spend with my mom and Dong Dong either. I am thankful for every person in this world. They've kept me from living an even more miserable life, except for Gu Tangxing back then, when I sold my parents' house and threw away everything that needed to be discarded. I couldn't find any object that could stir Gu Tangxing's emotions. I could only desperately create new memories now. When he worked overtime, I would bring Dong Dong along to deliver meals. Gu Tangxing introduced to his colleagues, "This is my wife and son." The colleague smiled and called me sister-in-law, then gave Gu Tangxing a playful punch. "Wow, I thought you were single. Your son is already this big, and sister-in-law is so beautiful." Dong Dong grinned, revealing his pink gums, and I smiled along with him. "We look like a happy family of three, just like the most ordinary family in the world." "Tangxing, do you remember? We used to watch the sunrise together too." "Tangxing, this soup is good for your stomach, you should drink more." "Tangxing, Dong Dong wants to take a family portrait, shall we go together?" When we were taking the family portrait, Gu Tangxing proposed to me, and I agreed without hesitation. We got our marriage certificate, and Dong Dong became the child of Gu Tangxing and his deceased wife, not an illegitimate child anymore. The photo shoot was on the weekend. When the work week came, Gu Tangxing and I got our marriage certificate. "Hello, Mr. Gu. Hello, Mrs. Gu. December 4th, 2024, I married the person who killed my father. 20 in the evening. News of Qiong Yao's suicide was everywhere. I also cried for a while. It's not that I particularly liked Qiong Yao. I haven't watched any of her dramas in many years. It's just that Qiong Yao always reminds me of those holidays. I was at home watching My Fair Princess and Romance in the Rain. Before my parents came home, I secretly turned off the TV and used an electric fan to blow away the heat from the television. Those days without hardship are gone and will never return. I envy Qiong Yao so much, for being able to leave gracefully. She was a spark that burned with all her might, living a life full of brilliance and freedom. I am leaving too. I don't know how to love, I don't know how to hate, and my laughter and tears are beyond my control. Perhaps I have never truly lived. I wasted the life my parents gave me. 21, I began to think about how to leave this world. I was afraid that the final treatment at the end of my life would wear away the last trace of regret in Gu Tangxing. After seeing me thin, ugly, incontinent, and in so much pain that I lost my mind, Gu Tangxing would probably feel disgusted. I wanted to leave while I still had a beautiful shell, so that I could leave such an image in his heart. Only then could Dong Dong receive the greatest possible love. How should I go? Don't be ferocious. Don't scare Gu Tangxing. Coincidentally, today is the birthday of Dong Dong's classmate, who invited him to stay overnight at their home. After saying goodbye to Dong Dong, I returned home, sent the last scheduled message to Gu Tangxing. "Gu Tangxing, I love you, but I can no longer stay with you. I don't need a funeral. I hope you bury me as soon as possible and don't scare Dong Dong in the next life. I hope I can be like a butterfly, brilliant and colorful, fluttering away gracefully."